Hello, this is the quadratic formula. We use it to solve equations of this form. You'll see we have a 0 on the right hand side. This is because generally when we're solving a quadratic equation we have a parabola like this. A squared function gives a parabola either this way up or perhaps this way up. It could be here. In any case, what we're looking for is when the equation is equal to 0. That is, when it crosses the x-axis. We're looking for where the function is equal to 0. So now let's start with a simple one. Let's say x squared minus x minus 2 is equal to 0. Let's use this formula, substituting our values in. So we have x is equal to negative b. Well, the value of b here is minus 1, so the negative of minus 1 is 1. Then we have plus or minus the square root of b squared, well minus 1 squared is 1, minus 4a, which is 1, c, which is minus 2. Minus 2. All divided by 2 times a, which is 1. So, simplifying this, we have 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, but we're taking the negative of this, so it's 1 plus 8. All divided by 2. Simplifying again, we have 1 plus or minus the square root of 9. 1 plus 8 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Divided by 2. So we have two solutions here. 1 plus 3 is 4. Divided by 2. And the second solution is 1 minus 3 is minus 2, divided by 2 is negative 1. So our graph looks something like this. It crosses the graph here and here, point number 2, point number negative 1. So our quadratic graph looks something like that. Now let's solve a very simple one, for the sake of illustrating a point which you'll see shortly. Let's say x squared is equal to 0. To solve this with the quadratic formula, we say negative b, well that's 0, b is 0, plus or minus the square root of b squared, b is 0 again, minus 4 times a is 1 here, multiplied by c, which is 0, we have no constant term, 0, all divided by 2a, a is 1, so that's just 2. So x is equal to 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 minus, we have a multiplication of 0 here, so we've got 0 plus or minus 0, we're just going to have 0. So you know the graph of x squared looks a bit like this. The only place it crosses, touches the x-axis is 0. So let's move on to another one. Now let's say we have x squared plus 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. Substituting these values, let's put 2 there. Substituting these values into the quadratic formula, we have x is equal to negative b, which is minus 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4, minus 4 multiplied by a, which is 1, multiplied by c, which is 2. All divided by 2 times a is 1, so just 2. Simplifying this, we have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 2 is 8 divided by 2, which is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, oh dear, we have a negative number here. 4 minus 8 is minus 4 divided by 2. We can't do square roots of negative numbers, so this indicates there are no solutions to this equation. No solutions. Here is a further point. You can find out if a quadratic equation has one solution, two solutions, or no solutions by looking at the term under the square root. Now, we call the term under the square root b squared minus 4ac. We call this the discriminant. If the discriminant is greater than 0, let's call the discriminant d. If d is greater than 0, then there are two real solutions. If the discriminant is equal to 0, then there is one real solution. One real solution. And if d is smaller than 0, then there are no real solutions. This just means when you have a graph like this, so you have a parabola like that, there is one solution here, one solution there, and if you have a parabola here and it just touches the graph there, then you have one solution. And if you have a parabola like this and it doesn't cross the x-axis, doesn't touch the x-axis, then there are no real solutions. Now let's have a look at one more. Let's say we have negative x squared minus 5x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now the best thing to do with this is to multiply through by negative 1. So you end up with positive x squared plus 5x plus 4. Multiplying 0 by negative 1 leaves it as 0. So it's easier for us to work with this now. So substituting into the quadratic formula, we have negative b is minus 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 25, minus 4 times a, which is just 1, times c, which is 4, all divided by 2a. A is 1, so that's 2. Simplifying this, negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 4 is 16, 25 minus 16, 25 minus 16, divided by 2 gives us negative 5 plus or minus 25 minus 16 is 9, square root of 9 is 3, all divided by 2. So we have two solutions, negative 5 plus 3 over 2, or negative 5 minus 3 over 2, which is minus 5 plus 3 is minus 2, divided by 2 is negative 1, minus 5 minus 3 is minus 8, divided by 2 is minus 4. So these are our two solutions. x is equal to -1 and -4. So 1 here and 1 here. And don't forget that this was originally negative. So this is an inverted parabola. It's n-shaped when it's negative. So to summarise, the quadratic formula can be used to solve any quadratic equation if it has solutions. If it doesn't, then you'll be able to tell from the discriminant. If the discriminant is positive, you can have 2 solutions. If it's 0, there's only 1 solution. And if it's negative, then you know there's no solutions. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe, like, comment and share. Goodbye.